Oh, hello, friends. On a day of cringy introductory press conference moments, we examine if the Cards could be the beneficiary from some bad coaching hires. Johnny?
Absolutely. Plus, you know what? At the end of the day, are the Arizona Cardinals set up to succeed like Philadelphia? Is that a formula they can follow en route to? Gasp, a Super Bowl of their own? PHNX Cardinals starts now. Hey, welcome in live from Studio K, presented by our friends at Circle K. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your number one premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. I'm Johnny Venerable. He is my co-host, Mr. Brack, in Studio K. Damon Dawg is back behind the mic, presenting sponsor on this post-championship Sunday. Our friends at Bet365. I need them now more than ever. I had a hard time on the betting scene this weekend. Download the Bet365 app. Use the bonus code PHNX365 when you sign up. Find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365. My dear friend Bo, how we living, my guy?
Yeah, did you tail me this weekend? I was 0 for 4 as far as my bets went. Not good, but what is great, you start to a new week here at PHNX Cardinals land. What's up, Shaft, Marco? How about Didi, Jules Felix, Claymore Jones? Here, as always, Christian. Love to see everybody in the chat. Rafa, Mr. J, K2, AZ Bro 95. Oh, for sure. And Han shot first. He's in there as well.
I don't know what that move was. What was that?
Kind of just shooting like Han does.
I think that's the best Han Solo impression any of the hosts on this show could do.
What? What? Never. How dare
Darth
you?
Vader,
you have the Han Solo vibe.
My plane. How's that?
I'm offended. And if
You
this
know
wasn't
Star
a Monday
Wars,
show,
bro.
I might walk off of it. If we didn't have a banner show for you fine people today, I might leave right now after that egregious Harrison Ford impression. But we will power through here.
It's pretty good.
I hope everybody had a great championship Sunday. Cardinals did not participate. That's fine. Are they poised to lose their best position coach? First of all, can we get a flipping winning record before they start losing coaches? Good hell. But we're going to start with the pass rush market, which is, of course, the topic of conversation early and often on this show. And, Bo, you put out just the tastiest little short over the weekend. And people are like, oh, that's no big deal. Cardinals, Maxx Crosby. But then you've got one Cardinal linebacker, off-ball linebacker, Mack Wilson Sr., courting Mad Max. Break it down for us, Bo. How did this come about? What do you believe is happening right now as it relates to the star pass rusher for the Las Vegas Raiders?
You know, when the Las Vegas Raiders made the choice to sign senior citizen Pete Carroll as their next head coach, Maxx Crosby took to the Twitter streets and put out a cryptic, as where we were used to seeing from Chandler Jones way back in the day, cryptic social media message, just, you know, saying that when they don't appreciate you, this and that, here and there. As far as what Maxx Crosby was saying, it's kind of confusing to me. He said, undisputed, they will wish they treated you better when times were tough. The fake always exposed themselves. Hashtag limitless with the eagle and the diamond emoji, to which our sweet Mack Wilson quote tweeted saying, you look great in Cardinal red. I'm just saying, with the rocket ship emoji, which is infamous back in the NBA free agency days. Was it who was it that was going to the Mavericks, that there was a bidding war with the
DeAndre Jordan?
Yeah, DeAndre Jordan with the Houston Rockets. And one of the rocket emoji was utilized, I believe, in that melee, as we'll call it.
Yeah, that was a tough time for the Mavericks. They got ousted there. I don't think Monti Ossenfort is going to have to drive to Maxx Crosby's house. Remember that? Like the middle of the night, he had to drive to his cul-de-sac and try to get him. That's not happening today. Listen, this show, you can put it on record, a month ago reported. It was a real report coming from this little fanboy podcast. The Cardinals tried to trade for Maxx Crosby at the trade deadline. Like that happened. The Cardinals offered draft capital, and they're interested in Maxx Crosby's market and his availability. And I said at the time, Tom Telesco being fired helps Monti Ossenfort if that's still the avenue he wants to pursue. Now, if you remember, everybody has to contextualize. When Monti Ossenfort made those phone calls at the deadline, I don't want to say we were in a much different spot, but the team was in first place and 6-4 in the division. Like It was a move to try to win the NFC West long term. Do you sign or do you trade for a 27, soon to be 28-year-old player out of season? Like that's something that they're going to have to weigh. And that's why I think Telesco foolishly could have helped himself. He did not. And he's been subsequently fired. And now he's got a player that's disgruntled, or he doesn't. The Raiders do. As you mentioned, they hire Pete Carroll, right? And I saw a lot of people running with the narrative, Pete's a defensive head coach and he'll want to keep Maxx Crosby. I guess you can try to connect the dots there. I'm more of Pete is young at heart, and I believe he'll want young players. I believe he'll want players at the collegiate level, and I think he'll want to make his own mark. And you cannot tell me for a second, I think Pete will bring viability and enthusiasm. He will not win his first year. Sean Payton didn't win his first year, right? They barely won this year. I had to take a faux fraud schedule for the Broncos, respectfully, get to the playoffs. The quickest path for Pete Carroll to have success is assets, draft capital, young, impressionable players. And to do that, you have to trade your best asset. I still have the mindset I think they'll trade Maxx Crosby this offseason. And I think this is like the first step toward that. I think the disgruntled nature of Crosby putting this out there and Mack Wilson Sr. maybe knowing what we know already, that the Cardinals have some interest. Agents talk, players talk. So, yeah, this doesn't surprise me at all, and I'm surprised more people, frankly, aren't running with it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a moment today during Pete Carroll's introductory press conference, which I think might be the leader in the clubhouse, is the most normal introductory press conference today, which is it should be relatively easy to pull off considering the whack job stuff that was going on, especially Liam Cohen down there in Jacksonville.
We're going to get to that.
But Pete Carroll basically acknowledging Maxx Crosby, who was in attendance. He lives in Vegas, and telling him that the Raiders were back up. Like that, we'll see. Like I'm not full on board with you and convinced that Max is going anywhere, because it is like you have to weigh your options. Like you keep a really good player on your team. I know, like if you're staring down a rebuild at his age, it's unrealistic for him to be on the other end of that. Once things start to turn around, and then also creating assets from what assets you already have in house. And Crosby certainly presents that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the new brain trust of the Las Vegas Raiders, which is completely revamped. And I was saying this on the All NFL show today, like where it was 2 weeks ago, man, have they done a pretty decent job in cleaning up the mess. It's now like your brain trust, instead of pumpkin pie haircut at Mark Davis, it's suave, Tom Brady. And then it's, their new GM and Pete Carroll, to where before it was Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco, and Mark Davis.
Yeah. I mean, they've done a nice job. How old is Pete Carroll going to be before they have a roster that's ready to compete? 77? Like he's 73 right now, going on 74. We went through the roster last week because we were just kind of tearing our hair out because the NFL news cycle was slow at the time. They have no talent on that team. They have nobody. They can go sign some players. Subsequently, they can go out and try to trade for a player, and then they're going to have, a bunch of draft capital this year. They're not winning anything. And I like Pete Carroll, and he's a grown-up. And maybe it's the Bill Parcells. Remember when Bill Parcells went to Damon's Dolphins and he kind of made them respectable overnight, and they were like 9-7? That's kind of what this looks like. Except he didn't go to a division with three other likely Hall of Famers, and Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, and of course Andy Reid, with the greatest team of all time right now, going for a three-peat in Super Bowls. Like you could chop it up with Maxx Crosby for optics at your press conference, but at the end of the day, it's like I just don't think it fits their timeline. And I'd be surprised if he was on the team. Now, I could be wrong here, but as we transition from Maxx to Micah, we've had our guy Clarence from DLS Cowboys on the show saying he doesn't envision Micah Parsons being dealt. But then you've got Micah going on Instagram posting cryptic things because the Dallas Cowboys had maybe the most embarrassing week of the offseason, the young offseason thus far. They hired a perennial offensive coordinator, position coach as head coach. They did it with a Friday news dump at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And then Jerry Jones proceeded to – Jerry Jones is full-blown Al Davis now. His press conference today was hilarious, but not for our friends in Cowboy land. Like, I'm not saying that it's a likelihood, but Micah Parsons, like, potentially being dealt, like, everything's on the table for Dallas right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, the only issue is you still have the same architect in place, and he's probably just going to continue to lean on his principles from – that he's gone through. Yeah, no doubt about it. So like Jerry Jones is going to go hire another, mouthpiece head coach, and that's going to be in place. And then he's going to do what he wants with the roster, and he's going to put them in, even worse position to be competitive next year. So they were in a tough position this year, and that's going to continue because they're in cap hell. They don't have a whole lot of assets. They could create some with Micah Parsons. But in that, like, logic would point to, hey, you could spend him, even though he shouldn't have been the player of the stars that you extended, that you made expendable because of his position and his production and, how old he is right now in need of an extension. But like, I mean, there's a special kind of crazy going on in Dallas to where you can't rule out anything. You can't rule out anything. And with Micah Parsons, like, could he, with his own kind of player empowerment, it's getting bigger and bigger in the NFL, could he force his way out if he feels like things are so volatile in Dallas? And they're like, even for the Cowboys, this is kind of next level stuff.
Yeah. No, and that press conference today was about as out there. I saw nothing from Brian Schottenheimer. All the clips and all the headlines I saw were just Jerry kind of being a buffoon, respectfully. Just him out there just shooting from the hip, so to speak, talking about he wanted to make money or he would have been a coach. And of course, this is a risk. He's never been a head coach before. He's sitting right there. It was bizarre. And like, Marty Schottenheimer was one of my favorite coaches growing up. Immense respect for the Schottenheimer family. And Brian, once upon a time, was the darling of the NFL. That was like 10 years ago.
A long time ago.
15 years ago, it was Mark Sanchez's AFC championship team with Rex Ryan. That was the last time this guy's been viable. Now they're just like, you know what? He was under McCarthy. Didn't call plays, by the way. Let's just make him the head coach. I think everything is on the table for both these franchises because they're uber dysfunctional. And you could say, well, the Cardinals are dysfunctional. They're in a good spot right now to take advantage of a franchise, I think. But I also feel like as we've gone through the course of this offseason, albeit in a month's time here in January, free agency is going to be a difficult place for the Cardinals to check and solve all their pass rush problems. I think we've established that. We're talking about Josh Sweat and Haason Reddick. They are not in the caliber of, player edge rusher that was available last year. Ossenfort fumbled that, right? He flubbed that up. And I think, if you want to be able to definitively check a box at that position, you're going to need to trade for a player, or you're going to need to stick by your morals. And with each passing day, this feels like the way they're going to go and draft and develop a pass rusher, right? Now, you can supplement and do a little bit of both, but, the more time goes on, I was surprised today. I put it out there on the Twitter streets, like, what would you give up for Maxx Crosby if you're a Cardinal fan? And a lot of people were like, I don't want to trade for a 28-year-old player that's injured right now. And I do think that that's partially because the Cardinals, unlike when they were 6-4 at the bye, they're reevaluating everything, right? They're starting with a clean slate this offseason. And because we all fall in love with draft prospects and we all think everybody's going to hit. So, I mean, what's your opinion of that situation? Like, what do you think the best route is to take to remedy that position?
I mean, if you can get a proven commodity, the caliber of Maxx Crosby, I'm not concerned about his age. I mean, he's at the tail end of his prime as far as NFL standards, but still playing at a high level before the ankle injury, and it is concerning to see him still today, like in a walking boot.
I know.
But
love that.
he should be. All signs point to him being able to find his 4-time Pro Bowl flow come next season. I mean, he was on his way to lead the NFL and TFLs for a third straight season. He was on his way for a third consecutive double-digit sack season. He's long, he's disruptive, he's violent, he's everything that you want. And like, if you're looking at even at the bare minimum, just the final 2 years of his deal, taking him to 30 years old, I think it's well worth what you would give up in draft capital to add an established player at the position that they've need it for so long. It's been such a need under Gannon in the first 2 seasons.
I polled Cardinal fans, so this is not just my opinion, Bo's opinion. We've gotten people's feedback. This is the consensus right now with what Cardinal fans would be comfortable giving up for Maxx Crosby. Damon, let's see it. The Maxx Crosby trade package here on PHNX Cardinals. It's not what you would think. It's not a first rounder. It's a 2025 second, a 2026 second, which equates to a third this year, and our friend Jalen Thompson, who we love, but Cardinal fans love to include him on trade offers, so be that what you may. So for Maxx Crosby.
Just a little sweetener. It is like, it's such an unprovoked, just little sweetener that I haven't seen. If you deep dive any like hypothetical trades, people just are throwing the Cardinal veteran safety in there.
I love Jalen Thompson. Come on, Cardinal fans. Let's not do him dirty all the time like that. But that's the consensus right now, which I find surprising because a month ago, you couldn't find anybody that didn't say, let's give up a first-round pick. And I vetted multiple social platforms. I've went through everything. That was the consensus. 2 2s. Let's do 2 2s. And I think a lot of it stems from the fact that we blow Steve Keim, the ex-GM, a lot of grief here. Steve Keim stole Chandler Jones for a second-round pick. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that typically is not the way it goes down. But you know what, Bo? I think I'm with the audience. I think I'm with the Bird Gang when I say I think pick 16 is a little too much for me right now, given where the Cardinals are at, given how Monti Ossenfort likes to operate, and the fact that we've done more deep dive, tape study, evaluations on these prospects. Mm-hmm. Why would the Cardinals, and I'm asking you this, trade for a player like Crosby, who is older? I know you don't care much about the age, and give up the first give up the first in an edge-rich draft. I understand maybe last year the defensive class wasn't great. Maybe if you had a late-round pick that you would deal. We talked about that with Darius. Would they trade that pick at 27? I just feel like right now the Cardinals, I had somebody pose this to me earlier today. I think it speaks really well. Do you believe like the Cardinals are a Super Bowl team next year? I don't think we can say that. They finished third in their division. I think they need to be a playoff team. I don't think you can trade for Maxx Crosby if you don't believe that you're going to be within the Super Bowl bubble. I think that they thought maybe they were ahead of schedule, and that's why they tried to deal for him. But now it's like you're taking incremental steps to get to where you want to be, right? Yeah. And once in a while you get a flash in the pan team like Washington, they'll exceed expectations. But most of the time it's a gradual process. And does Maxx Crosby fit their timeline right now?
Well, you got to understand what the market's going to be for Maxx Crosby. Mm-hmm. What did Montez Sweat cost? Who's considered, who's not nearly as established as Maxx Crosby? Wasn't he a second-round pick from the Bears to Washington?
Yeah, second, maybe some change.
And he's a guy that had that point. Yeah, what were you going to say, Damon?
I think it was a high second, right?
High second. They had 2 at the time, and they flipped one to Washington.
It was
and Sweat was not a double-digit sack guy at that point. He's really he's younger, but he hadn't put up the bigger numbers. Kind of a guy that would, swat down passes at the line of scrimmage. He's kind of found himself as far as getting the quarterback, even more so in Chicago. It's just if that's the going rate for Montez Sweat, what should Maxx Crosby go for? Because wouldn't most people argue that Maxx Crosby's a little bit better?
Yeah, for sure. He's a better player. And in this scenario, you're giving up 2 2s. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. I just look at a team like Buffalo, and maybe it's just recency bias, and I'm like, wouldn't it make more sense for a team like that to try to do it to get over the hump? And I don't know, like the cap ramifications or if they trade him within conference, but listen, I'm not going to be upset if the Cardinals trade for Maxx Crosby and they still have interest. It just, and I think they do. I think they definitely will have interest. And we'll talk about Josh Sweat later in the show. Like the closer we get to free agency, the more damning it becomes of what's available at that position. Which is really unfortunate.
It's because it's not, you're not just going to be competing. It's not, hey, do the Cardinals want Maxx Crosby? He's available. He's theirs to have. I mean, there's going to be, as we see, like the thin market free agent wise, and it's relatively deep in the draft, but there's its own risks. If there's an established player out there, the Cardinals aren't going to be the only one that are going to be vying for Maxx Crosby's services. So are you going to be willing to pay the price? I mean, I think that's really what it's going to, Monti Ossenfort is going to get into rarefied air that he hasn't been in, where he's going to be competing with, a lot of teams that are going to look to upgrade their pass rush, a premium position. So is it worth it to him to give up 16? I'm with you. I don't think Monti Ossenfort would give up 16. I think he would rather have a controllable player at a really, relatively decent price for the next 4 to 5 years with that option.
When that pick was trending on like 22, 23, I know it's only 7 spots. It's easier to say like, yeah, I'm in season. I'm going for it. They couldn't get it done. And now it's like, our guy Roto Pat from NBC Sports tweeted out today, Cardinals were 2-6 post buy, and a lot of teams or a lot of national outlets are like finding this out now because people weren't tapped in, but we lived it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that makes you reevaluate everything. And number one thing is you're reevaluating your franchise quarterback and giving yourself an opportunity. Like, do you need to upgrade at some point? Quickly here, I did get kind of a consensus as well. Micah Parsons, let's take a look, Damon. Unlike Crosby, younger, not coming off injury, much more efficient, explosive, 26 years old. Consensus would be 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons, on par with like a Tyreek Hill, kind of in their prime, mid-20s, superstar player. I would not have an issue with this because I think Micah Parsons is going to the Hall of Fame. But again, you got Chandler Jones at the same age for a second. But I think there's less likelihood that Dallas does this compared to Crosby. And, I didn't even throw in Myles Garrett into this conversation. He's probably somewhere in this ballpark or maybe somewhere in between the Crosby-Parsons trade package. But again, Bo, it's like, why is the quarterback free agent crop with Sam Darnold going to be overvalued? Because the draft class is so terrible, whereas the edge class is great. Will these guys just not be undervalued? But if Crosby or Micah is dealt, is it Jerry Jones and Pete Carroll and Tom Brady calling teams instead of the other way around?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a mix between like the realization that with kind of the impressive draft crop and teams unwilling, that have decent first round picks and their unwillingness to part ways with them for these players. Like, is it worth it to the current teams, whether it's the Raiders, the Cowboys, or the Browns, to part ways with these premier players if they're not going to get the assets that, they were expecting? Like, if the market just doesn't truly materialize, maybe it's just best for them to hold their guy and move forward, even if they are staring down a rebuild. I'm with you, though. Acquiring Micah Parsons for those 2 first, by the time you get him extended and he's notching double-digit sacks for you, you're not even thinking about the 2 first-round picks.
No,
I mean, he would be such a difference maker for the Cardinals.
I just thought about this weekend, like, who is closing games for these teams? It's Chris Jones. It's George Karlaftis. It's Jalen Carter, right? Those are the guys. And where did they come from? The top of the draft, or they were developed internally, or they were signed to big money deals in free agency. The options that are available right now for the Cardinals, it's just, you got to be really particular if you're Monti Ossenfort. Are the Cardinals poised to lose their best position coach? We're going to talk about that right around the corner. I mentioned it. It was a tough betting weekend for your boy. Bo went over in his bets, as did I. I had won it was a 6-legger in the early game, and all I needed, I sent it to you, Bo. was a sweet baby Zach Ertz tutty, and it never, ever came. And listen, that's not the fault of our friends at Bet365. They gave me every opportunity. They were giving me free bets. They were boosting them, right? I tried. $10 was going to pay out $400, and I'm living and dying on that app, and it's so elite. I'm on it every day, and the best part is I can take my lumps, I can look ahead, and I can say, hey, NBA action, NHL action, right? They have pioneered live in-game betting, has Bet365, and I might get a little sick, bet on some Super Bowl props early. I don't know if you can bet on the Pro Bowl yet, but if you can, you best be sure your boy's going to be doing it. You got to be 21 years and older, located here in Arizona. Again, all you got to do is sign up right now, use the bonus code PHNX365, deposit $10, place a $5 bet or more, and you're going to get $150 in bonus bets. No questions asked. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov, Bo, for more info.
Just looking at some of the concerts here in the Valley of the Sun. Chris Stapleton coming to town in August. You could go see Kendrick in May. You could see Blake Shelton if you're into that. He's coming to town. Easiest way to get into any of the concerts you want to see, Game Time. Any of the sporting events you want to check out, gonna go to the Phoenix Suns. You can get in for $10. Last call tonight. They got more than enough seats available to watch the Suns, who are heating up. That's right. Suns, what have they won? Like 7 of the last 9 games?
Elite.
Look out for the Sunnies, because you can get a good ticket in yourself in the door with our friends over at Game Time. All you have to do is create an account, and of course, you use the promo code PHNX, get $20 off your first order. That's $20 off your first purchase with the code PHNX with Game Time. Terms apply. What time is it, Johnny?
It's game time.
Yeah,
it's game time. It's time to go to the game. Real quick, before we talk about Clayton Adams, Josh Sweat was on display this weekend, kind of, right? And he's available free agent. He's linked. Damn near every article I see, free agency has Josh Sweat becoming an Arizona Cardinal. And I just watched this weekend, and I know it's against the best competition, but he's had 153 postseason snaps this year. He is Philadelphia's lowest rated edge rusher in terms of rushing the passer, not overall, just rushing the passer. That's via our friends at PFF. 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hits. He's got 1 TFL, a couple pressures, right? And I see articles, it's like, who's going to land the star free agent? I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Star free agent that's had 1 double-digit sack season with Jonathan Gannon. Every other year, it's been relatively average production. And again, I'm not knocking the kid. I hope he gets paid, but I'm like, anybody who's watching Josh Sweat and is like, problem solved, I see the same problems the Cardinals have.
It's really interesting, just the difference between how you talk about Josh Sweat and how you talk about Haason Reddick.
Okay.
And it's like the meme that's out there where it's like somebody says the same thing as the other guy, and one is getting promoted in the office and the other is being sent to HR. Because of some sort of misconduct, right? And I don't know why that is. Like, why you'll give Haason Reddick, going to be 31 years old, with 1 total sack in the 2024 season, why you'll give him the grace and say, look at what he did with Jonathan Gannon in 1 season. And now you're just like, oh, and you just kind of throw away that Josh Sweat had 11 sacks under Jonathan Gannon in 2022.
The best player defensively when Philadelphia went to the Super Bowl was Haason Reddick. He took over the playoffs. That is not Josh Sweat right now at the same age. And again, I'm not going to discredit what Haason Reddick has done in his tenure because of a bad stint with the Jets. I think you're getting this year closer to what Josh Sweat is, which is probably close to what the Cardinals already have. And Zaven and what was Dennis Gardeck. I put it out there. I think you could probably get similar production to Josh Sweat if you signed Baron Browning and let him play for 17 games. I could be nuts. Feel like you're probably going to get about the same, close to the same production. I'm at that point right now. There is only one player in this conversation that had 16 sacks in a season, okay, just 2 seasons ago. There's only one player in this conversation that has had 4 straight double-digit sack seasons. There is only one player in this conversation that has played under the banner of an Arizona Cardinal and a Philadelphia Eagle, and that's Haason Reddick. Okay. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't for Michael Bidwell. He'd probably rather bring back a name that he's familiar with. Neither player should have you break the bank, and neither player should be deemed as the answer to the position long term. But I just feel like if we're signing Josh Sweat at 28 years old to a 4-year deal for like $80 million, we're going to be disappointed with what comes out of that. Whereas if you get Haason Reddick on a 2-year incentive-laden deal and you say, hey, Haason, give me the best that you have, and we're going to put you in positions to succeed, and we're going to put you opposite insert X first-round pass rusher at 16, I just think you have a way better chance for success. Whereas like, hey, we're putting all of our pass rushing chips in a guy who looks respectfully invisible in these playoffs, I think we're all going to be we're all going to be like, where the hell's Josh Sweat? When the tape is telling you that he's not this kind of player. And shame on Monti Ossenfort for putting himself in this position. I'm going to keep saying it because he blew it last year. Grenard looked great in the regular season. He looked great in the playoffs for Houston. He was an ascending player, and they said, we're not interested. Let's just get more of what we have, please. And now it's like you are at the mercy of free agency now. And guess what? It's imperfect for Monti Ossenfort. It's an imperfect free agency class.
Let me just say this. I want to correct you. This is my own feeling on it. It's like you are now like you've put yourself in a position to where the only logical upgrade, it's not free agency. It's the NFL draft. And that's a long wait. Like that gets back to our unfortunate truths conversation we had on Friday. It's like, are they going to add a significant piece to the pass rush room in free agency? And I think that it's more and more likely that they're not. Like they're not going to throw a bag at Josh. You wouldn't think. Like if they did, like you can find like why it makes sense. But does it really? Does it add up? Does it equal what to be true about Monti Ossenfort? Does it seem like a move that he would make?
No.
And the answer is no. So when you go there and you're banging the table for a 1 to 2 year prove-it deal for Haason Reddick, and that's kind of your placeholder between now and draft day, late April, it's going to make the fan base a little uneasy, but I think that's probably the most realistic approach, along with like a Baron Browning or somebody of his caliber, mixed in as well, because you got to fill out roster spots.
I think this fan base is smart enough to understand that this is a loaded draft at that position, and you just, like last year, it wasn't, will the Cardinals take a receiver in the first round? Which receiver are they going to draft? That was the conversation. Marv, Malik, trade down for Rome, right? You couldn't leave the first round without one of the big 3 to 4 guys, right? That has to be the conversation now at pass rusher. But this is where it becomes exponentially more difficult, Bo, is that unlike last year, when you're in the catbird seat at pick 4 and you have your pick of the litter and you get MHJ, this year you were at the mercy of 15 teams ahead of you, most of which could use a pass rusher. So you're going to have to go into the draft with an understanding that we need to be able to fill out a roster, so we don't have to force that pick. But I keep coming back to the notion that the Cardinals have needs at positions in free agency, and they can get helped by the top end guys, the top 15 to 20 guys, right? But are you just defaulting to pass rusher number one because it's the biggest need? No, I would go out inside. We talked about this in our dream offseason last week. Go and give Trey Smith the bag. He's the best overall player, sans T. Higgins. He fits a need, and he's in the prime of his career, and he's a Super Bowl champion and a winner. Like, that's the easiest one to connect the dots. You might have to get a little bit more creative at pass rusher. I'll tell you what, though. I saw Milton Williams make plays this weekend. He continues to make plays. If you want to prioritize Milton over anybody other than, at pass rusher, I have no issue with that. It's all about upgrading at positions of need. And the bar is so low at pass rusher, I don't think we should just sit here and say, like, Sweat's the guy because default. Yeah. And there's too many outlets doing that right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's just easy, lazy connecting the dots. No doubt about it. I mean, you have like this super sick, nuanced conversation like we just had about it. And I'm still up on Osa Digizua from Dallas.
Pick whomever they opt to is
But
better
then-
than what they have.
Then you got Damon and my guy, Deion Walker. His size was just officially locked in at the Senior Bowl, 6'7", 340 with a 7-foot wingspan. And Daniel Jeremiah going through saying his top 50 is going to have like 12 defensive linemen on it. Like, is that do you go out and pay Milton Williams a ton of money when you can get some beef?
Yeah, you
in
do.
The draft.
You do, because the rest, Darius and Dante Stills notwithstanding, the rest of that room is bad. It's not very good. You don't discount an upgrade by just saying, well, the draft class is good. I think talent's talent. You're not going to be able to fill all your needs. What if they like a quarterback in the second round? They take an edge rusher in the first, and then suddenly it's like, oh,
did you say quarterback?
Yeah. Or what if they take what if they take a tackle or a guard? You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's got a great plan of, I'm going to add a tackle and a D tackle and an edge rusher and a guard and a quarterback. And you only have so many. It's not last year. You have to be much more intentional in free agency to get top end players to come and want to play here. And I saw Jalen Smith in the chat saying, well, we underestimated Jalen Blair. I apologize that we underestimated players' willingness to come here last year. Okay, if you want to buy into that, then this is the year then you better be signing all the top free agents. You got the fourth most cap space before you make any moves. So it's going to be a topic of conversation that we continue to dissect. I'm going to put a pin in this. We're going to hit it right around the corner. The Cardinals have lost, it sounds like, one position coach. Are they on track to lose another? That's coming up.
Am I talking about all of our...
You're talking about our friends at Cold Cannabis.
Yeah, I love Cold Cannabis. I was just daydreaming about heading over to True Leave. Actually, there's a True Leave location just right down here on 7th Street and Roosevelt. It's right there. It's you can just get in there as Max, our ad man, just throws some Cold Cannabis at us. You can also go find some of it yourself over at True Leave. It's a great
stuff, man.
Yeah, it is, man. That is it's pungent in the best way. It's really kind of tickling the nostrils there with our friends over at Cold Cannabis. You got to check it out right now. Our friends with the exclusive Magic Marker premium flower. You got to check them out and tell them that PHNX Cardinals sent you. Great flower, hard to find these days, but look no further than our friends over at your local True Leave. You got True Leave's exclusive Magic Marker strain. New True Leave location is opened, of course, in Maricopa earlier this month. Get over to trueleave.com, find your local shop, and place an order and tell them PHNX sent you. No take backsies, Max.
No givesies backsies. Love our friends at True Leave. Love our friends at Sanderson Ford. Again, the Cardinals looking to get some beef up front. Same goes for me in my household here. I'm looking to load up on a big old truck with our friends at Sanderson Ford. It's the official vehicle partner of PHNX. New year, new me. Drive into the new year with a Ford from Sanderson Ford. New year, new vehicle, new Johnny Venerable in 2025. How about this? I'm about to hit the trails in my own, make your own Bronco Badland. How about that? Love customizable vehicles. Sanderson has 28 to choose from with discounts up to, this isn't your little podunk discount. This is up to $10,000 off. That's real money, man. Purchase a new Edge for only $35,995. They also took in hundreds of quality trade-ins during the year. And of course, 25 pre-owned vehicles with a warranty under $25,000. How about saving money and getting the luxury and the support you look to expect from the best deals in 2025? It's Sanderson Ford. Drive into the new year with a Ford from Arizona's most awarded Ford dealership. It's Sanderson Ford, Bo.
Man, I'm hoping you can find that beef up front that you've been.
This is me right here in my truck. I'm just looking at you and your
Johnny looking for
little
some
baby truck.
The beef up front is the way he. That's word for word how he decided to start that one.
What people say. I don't know what the problem is.
It's been interesting going through this whole coaching carousel, and you thought, like the least the Cardinals could stand to lose was having to find a new play caller offensively. And like there was really no true threat, I think, to Drew Petzing. He interviewed on Zoom with the Bears, and that was like the only interview that was locked in. But then once the dominoes started to fall, and they really started to fall last week, Jonathan Gannon, some of his staff members became hot commodities to these teams that just hired new head coaches, and even going down to the college ranks. Cardinals linebacker coach Sam Seifkes is joining Virginia Tech. This is official. Virginia Tech actually just tweeted out he's the new DC there. So Sam is no longer there, and it was kind of one of the few position groups, Johnny, that had mostly veterans on it outside of Owen Papo. So, but Sam, did a good job. He goes on the take on the Hokies DC job. The Cardinals are going to look to kind of tweak up the defensive staff, and wishing nothing but the best to Sam Seifkes.
Yeah, 100%. Cardinals are going to add bodies to that position this offseason, presumably a starter or two in the draft. Mack Wilson's only got 2 years left on his deal. This is a good timing, I think, for everybody. And again, Nick Rallis is a linebacker himself. I don't worry about any infrastructure of the defense, with all due respect, as long as you've got Nick Rallis and John again. Yeah. It's just how I feel. And I'm glad they've developed a pipeline and they're getting people hired. Cardinals overachieved defensively more than I think any team in the NFL, not named like Washington, en route to the NFC Championship game. I mean, the Cardinals defense deserves all the accolades. It's the Cardinals offense that we have to be concerned about because of the way they finished the season, the scrutiny, for lack of a better term, that Drew Petzing is under, and the fact that their number one position coach right now, in many fans' eyes, in my eyes, in your eyes, Clayton Adams, is interviewing and is a real candidate, according to Jim Jones of CBS, friend of this show, to become the next OC for Brian Schottenheimer. There's that name again, in Dallas. Clayton Adams, who has come here and has turned the Cardinals offensive line, say what you will about Drew Petzing, into one of the best units under the radar in the NFL. They were 5th in rushing this year. They were top 5 last year. They gave up only 30 sacks. He's developed Yelda Froldholt, Paris Johnson Jr. He's working with Isaiah Adams. He is unequivocally a coach that I could understand why Brian Schottenheimer would want to pluck him away from the Cardinals. It's funny, you mentioned we can't lose your play caller. You'd be surprised if we polled the audience, Twitter, whomever, who would you rather keep, Clayton Adams or Drew Petzing? 20%, too conservative to say Clayton over Drew Petzing. I feel like that's probably the way most of the audience would go. And I think I'm with you. You can't put a price on a good offensive line coach, a great coach, and that's what Clayton Adams is.
Remember the Cardinals employed Russ Grimm as their offensive line coach?
One of my biggest horror show nightmares of this franchise.
They continuously underperformed, but yet he was always in like the coaching cycle interviews and stuff like that. And you're
one of the worst coaches in franchise history.
One of the worst, right? But he continually got interviews, never got hired. Like no franchise was that naive to hire him, but they, he was in, I guess, in the coaching circles enough to where every time there was an opening, he got a job. Based on, maybe his playing days or just, reputation. People must have loved Russ Grimm, but his position group stunk year in and year out for the Arizona Cardinals. But like, that's not the case with Clayton Adams. This is like well-deserved. This is actually, you got to give credit to Brian Schottenheimer or whoever the person is that's, wanting to just talk to Clayton Adams about the position. And it makes complete sense. Like if Schottenheimer is going to be your primary play caller, why not get somebody in there that's going to be your offensive line, maybe your run game coordinator in Clayton Adams, and help you game plan for opposing defenses? I think that, you don't need like just a Brian Schottenheimer, behind the guy behind the guy play caller. Like you need somebody that's going to be able to strengthen your offensive staff. And that's exactly what Clayton Adams would be able to do. Like to your point, like you just the diverse profile of player that he's been able to elevate from top pick, blue chip talent in Paris Johnson Jr. to journeyman Yelda Froholdt to 3rd round pick Isaiah Adams to, off the streets practice squad guy like Jackson, Barton, and then Kelvin Beachum at 35 years old, who's been able to work with and set up for success. That's what you're looking for from a coach, a position coach, a coordinator, a head coach, being able to elevate any diverse profile of player and find a way for them to be successful. And Clayton Adams has done that.
Questions in the chat. Was this a Drew hire or a Jonathan Gannon hire? It was a JG recommendation. They were with each other in Indianapolis, I believe, in 2019, 2020. And he made his mark. I know Clayton Adams, I think, spent some time at Colorado as well. And is just super well respected.
He almost came to ASU a couple of years ago.
That's right. He did. But he was with JG a couple different stops. So, I mean, it would be a very disappointing loss for the Cardinals. And if you're JG, hopefully you've got an heir apparent ready. The good news, if you can call it that, would be, well, they're going to have a veteran now at left tackle, who, by the way, Paris Johnson Jr. not selected into the Pro Bowl, which was really disappointing. I got that wrong. Brian O'Neill of the Vikings, they gave him the nod over Paris, even though Paris was an alternate. Who knows how that? I feel like the Pro Bowl, there's so many politics in it. But you've got Paris. If you bring back Kelvin Beachum, he's a veteran. Yelda's a veteran. Isaiah Adams is in year 2. I mean, like, whomever would be inheriting that unit, you're in really good shape. All 3 of your tight ends, you're not starting with a blank canvas. Whereas Dallas's offensive line, Zach Martin's a free agent. I mean, they're starting over, right?
Yeah.
They're putting new pieces in place. So their tackle that they drafted from Oklahoma last year, the kid we liked, did not have a good year. No. So the Cardinals are in a good position to acclimate a new person, albeit for 1 year, but we'll see. I mean, this might expedite your need to go out and get a Trey Smith on top of everything else we've talked about, or get a proven Camardi at left guard. Like, maybe this is not the year, if you lose your offensive line coach, to say, we're going to go heavy with O-lineman in the draft. No, let's make sure we keep that unit as stable as possible. I'm just speculating.
Another good chat entry by our guy, Jalen Blair, because remember this soon after JG was hired, heard this name kind of in the rumors, the rumblings. So I wonder if Adams left, if JG would reach out to renowned O-line coach Mike Munchak, who he worked with under in Tennessee. And Munchak was like, remember there's like a couple bigger name coaches that you thought that JG might bring with him, and he went in favor of some younger candidates, absolutely, that were considered like mentors to JG, but he went with these young guys like Clayton Adams himself. I wonder if he would just kind of go back to a Munchak, who's had a lot of success as an O-line coach in this league.
The Cardinals and the preference for Gannon, like most coaches, and again, like, you got to weigh it between, taking care of your own and making sure you remain competitive. He wants to promote from within. We have that source, like we've talked about it many times. Drew Terrell is the heir apparent to Drew Petzing if Petzing ever gets a head job, right? Or if Petzing struggles next year, maybe Drew Terrell calls plays. Defensively for Nick Rallis, I'm firm belief that their secondary coach, whose name escapes me, I think it's Patrick Toney, would be in line to coordinate that defense right now. So I can't sit here and tell you, like, just looking at their staff right now with Clayton Adams, like, I don't know who would take over internally. Like, Chris Cook's the assistant offensive line coach. I'd be lying to you if I knew his resume. I think he was with the Broncos at some point and then came out of Duke. So again, like, if you had to ask me right now, I would say they would go internal, but I have no idea. It'd be wild speculation. But that is Gannon's philosophy, taking care of his own, promoting from within, right? We kind of gotten tipped off early of that when we were putting out those names, because we had heard from other people, Munchak and Mike Zimmer, and then we got contacted separately, like, Gannon's going to do the opposite. He had the 2 youngest coordinators in the NFL when he got hired, in Petzing and Rallis combined. I think Rallis was the youngest coordinator in the NFL history. So that would be my guess right now, is what they want to do.
Yeah.
But hopefully Clayton gets a raise and stays in Arizona.
He'd have to really, I think it would be tough for him. I know you would get by just title a bit of a promotion by going to Dallas, but like with Schottenheimer calling the plays, like, do you really want, like, what would you say you actually do here? That would be tough to define, where, like, just wait it out. And if the offense goes the direction that you think it's going to go, like, guys from Petzing himself is going to get more interviews. Like, we didn't even talk about this. Izzy Wolfork got an interview, the Cubos coach, before the Bears made their decision on OC. So there's lots of guys that are getting some traction on JG's staff that would only benefit from this offense taking a step next season.
Cardinals coaching staff is well regarded. Like, regardless of what you may think about how the offense did this year in particular, like, I tweeted this out. Like, did the Bears like what they heard from Drew Petzing and wanted to get another look? And the infrastructure, Bo, you tweeted this out. The Cardinals manufacturing a run game like this for 2 years and stabilizing quarterback play. Now they need to go to a different level, but just like, remember how many hits Kyler Murray was taking under Kliff Kingsbury, and it was so erratic. The Cardinals are just very buttoned up on both sides of the ball, and that's the coaching staff, especially offensively, when you can say, like, when you give up 30 sacks and you don't have a Pro Bowl lineman. I mean, the Eagles had 3 Pro Bowl linemen this year, and so of course they get the accolades. Teams look at that. Teams look at the fact that I can't name an NFL casual can't name a defensive player for the Cardinals outside of Budda Baker, and they were 15th in points per game. So I said this on the top of the show, though. It's just unfair. It's grossly unfair. We don't have a winning season yet, or, albeit a playoff season with JG and company, and they're already having coaches picked over. That tells me that we have a talent problem in Arizona. And I think we all know that. I have immense confidence in this coaching staff. I posted something yesterday, going back from memory lane. We had done a show 2 years ago, and we had our coaching tracker, and it was like, guys that worked out like Dan Quinn and Sean Payton, then a bunch of Frank Wrights. And I had some people in there saying, "Oh, we got the worst option." I'm like, "Are you nuts? Are you outside your mind?" Like, I get it. Jonathan Gannon, they had a tough time down the stretch. He'd be the first to tell you. But think about where this franchise was, guys, 2 years ago. It was they were literally the Jets. They were literally the laughing stock of the NFL. They've stabilized it. Now it's time to go to another level.
Yeah, it was like Aaron Glenn, who just had his presser today with the Jets. And he just gave up a 45 burger in an elimination game. And there was, Dan Quinn, of course, having all the success in Washington, but, credit to him, and also credit Adam Peters setting him up for success in his first season.
Yep.
And then, like, Gannon is right there in the thick for one of the best hires of that coaching cycle. And I looked at that graphic, and he hadn't even had an interview set. The reports hadn't truly come out, but your boys had it. Because our guy, Benjamin Albright, came on the show early in the process and said JG will interview for this spot.
And things got real quiet for a while as the Cardinals did their thing, and then were promptly punished for it come draft season. We might punish you around the corner. We're going to talk about franchises with 0 Super Bowls. Are the Cardinals among the teams that gasp could change that here in the coming season or two? That's coming up. Super Bowls on the mind. How about Super Shakers with our friends at Ice Shakers? It's the perfect gift for passionate sports fans in your life. I mentioned beefing up earlier. I'm going to do that with my Ice Shaker. It's officially licensed by NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, Major League Baseball, and more. It's the only way I'm going to get my protein because it's created by the Gronkowski brothers. Ever heard of them? Ice Shaker has sold over 1 million bottles. They've changed the game with workout bottles, and this is the bottle you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com, bonus code, promo code ALLCITY25 at checkout. You're going to get 25% off your order. Pays for a quarter of it. Good Lord, that's a great deal. They've got kitchen-grade stainless steel bottles. They're going to last. They won't absorb odors like other plastic bottles. I can't tell you how many times you get the protein in it and you shake it up right, and it's one of those plastic bottles, and it leaves residue. It smells. Yeah. Sometimes it gets mold in it. Not this one. Plus, they're patented twist in the it breaks up the powder, the mechanism inside, but it's silent when you shake it. And basically, it's like you're not going to get those chunks of protein. You're not going to get those chunks of food. Everything is ready to go. It's third-party tested. Plus, it holds ice up to 30-plus hours. Right now, how about this deal? You're a local business, right? You got your own brand. You're doing online sales. You got a brick-and-mortar store, and you want to customize your own favorite bottle. Turnaround time, just 3 to 5 business days. Order your team-branded bottles today at iceshaker.com. Use the code ALLCITY25, 25% off. That's Ice Shakers. Show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Bo, it's Ice Shakers.
Love ice shakers. Also love my cell service friends over at Verizon, and they are giving you a smoking deal here. They're going to give you $800 to pay off your phone. That's right. If you don't have Verizon, you made that mistake once, don't make it again. If you're tired of your phone bill just draining your bank account, switch to Verizon, the reliable network that's not going to leave you broke. That's right. If you wish you could use the money for something more like fun and exciting, well, Verizon feels your pain. For a limited time, new customers get $800 in prepaid MasterCard to pay off your current smartphone loan when you switch. That's right. $800 from Verizon. Just trade in any phone from your top brands and selected unlimited plans. This deal won't last long, so don't get stuck on the bench. Switch to Verizon and take control of your game with $800 to help pay off your old phone. Get into a new one with the most reliable cell service you can find. Verizon. Visit your local Verizon store for all the details.
I've had other phone services, and then I always come back to Verizon because they're just the best. And I've had this phone. I think this is like an iPhone 12. It never does me dirty, but I'm ready to upgrade, and I'm going to do it with our friends at Verizon. Everybody upgrade. Do us a favor. Hit that like button. We've got almost 700 people watching live on a football Monday here. And if you're new to this program, welcome. This is the #1 Arizona Cardinal podcast in existence, and we've got a banner off-season of coverage coming up for you. Our guy, Fran Duffy, ever heard of him? NFL draft expert. Check out his work at gophnx.com right now. His NFL draft breakdown, I think, is on par with anybody, the Dane Burglars of the world, the Todd McShays. I mean, Fran is an up-and-coming star, and we got him right here at ALLCITY, gophnx.com. He's at the Shrine Bowl right now. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl next week, and we've got wall-to-wall this week. We've got wall-to-wall coverage here for what I think is going to be a hell of a draft season, Bo, with ALLCITY.
167 in-depth draft profiles that you can have access to just by becoming a diehard right now. It's worth its weight right there. Fran Duffy, you got a glimpse of it when he joined our show last week. Just a human draft information dispenser. That's what you got from Fran Duffy last week. You can continue to get that. All the in-depth scouting measurements that you want. It's interactive, video breakdowns, so much going on. Fran's national views with more team-focused takes, including Johnny, myself, Damon's. You can only get it one spot, of course, by becoming a diehard. Go phnx.com/draft guide, and it's going to give you all the insight you need this draft season.
If you're watching with one of our many streaming partners, we welcome you to gophnx.com. Again, hit that like button. We appreciate all of our streaming partners. We appreciate everybody in the chat. No new Super Bowl this year. No team like Buffalo. No team like the Detroit Lions going to get the monkey off their back. And that leaves 12 teams, Bo, that have never won a Super Bowl championship. Let's see the graphic, Damon Dawg. Cardinals are in this mix. For those of you who don't know, the Arizona Cardinals have the longest championship drought, not in NFL, but in the entire sports landscape. When the Chicago Cubs with Theo Epstein won their championship, what was that, 10 years ago? They put the Cardinals franchise at #1. The Cardinals have the longest championship drought. And then there's a bunch of other teams that are in the mix. Now, give credit. Jacksonville, Carolina, Houston, they haven't been around as much as some of these other stalwarts of the National Football League. But, Bo, as I look at this list here, who is the closest, do you think, to getting the monkey off their back?
The closest is the Bills, right? But will they ever get over the hump? Like, are they so close but yet so far away?
I don't think they'll ever beat the Chiefs, no.
So you have to look to a different. I mean, can you give Joe Burrow? I mean, I think his hands are tied with his ownership, and that they like the work that needs to be done on that roster in order for them to get over the hump. Beyond that passing attack is still going to be tough. Here are the teams I'm prepared to just immediately take out.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Falcons, Panthers, Jags, Titans, and the Browns.
Not a PHNX guy, huh?
Yeah, I just don't think that those teams are particularly close. Actually, they really feel like light years away from me. The Vikings, they seem like they're well run, but they're also another team that seems to be dealing with some sort of like
that's Fraud City.
Yeah. They are
The Vikings every year win 12 football games and just no one is scared of them for good reason.
yeah, there's supernatural forces at work there.
I like this comment. Sholo, man, every team in the NFC has a better shot at winning the Super Bowl than any of the AFC teams. I agree with that. I think if you're picking a team, I almost feel like default you have to pick from the NFC. What the Kansas City Chiefs are doing, they are impenetrable. I think they're going to win their third Super Bowl in a row. I would bet on them to win multiple.
I think if the Lions stay healthy, they could do it.
If they hit on another offensive coordinator and they load up in free agents, they were going to be my pick. I think Detroit coming back next year, running it back offensively, and then like who's to say they don't trade for a Maxx Crosby and pair him with Aiden Hutchinson? Like that's what they need. They were on fumes at the end of the year. I think Detroit and yeah, I mean that's really about it. I'll tell
you what, when I look at the bolt up there, I don't see Super Bowl, but I see like Josh Allen's successor as far as who's going to lose to the Chiefs, potentially with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert.
That's fine. I thought you were going of like who's going to jump the Bills next year. I 100% agree. Like if I'm going to compete in the AFC coach for coach, it's not Zach Taylor. Sorry, man. And it's not Sean McDermott.
I like the Texans.
You do with D'Amico and
I mean, I think that if they were in the NFC, they'd be my clear-cut choice. They've won playoff games 2 years with CJ Stroud. D'Amico Ryans seems to be a pretty solid head coach. I think they have a good, defensive line, which is important for winning a championship. I mean, the Chiefs are a tough team to beat, but I think the Texans are set up for what you'd want your team to be set up as.
See, I think to beat the Chiefs, you have to maul them like Tampa did. And I think you're right, Damon. They have elite pass rushers. That's why I think the Chargers eventually, if they continue to load up on line of scrimmage players, Buffalo is so soft and finesse. I know we think of Josh Allen and McDermott as tough guys. They play in Buffalo, but they're a finesse team. Their defense was atrocious yesterday. Their offense couldn't get 1 yard with a 6'7" quarterback. I'm sorry. You deserve to lose that game. Here's how you beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Turn on the tape of Todd Bowles in the Super Bowl, and you just whoop them up front. And I think the Chargers, that's their mindset. I don't think they have the players yet. And you're right, Damon. D'Amico Ryans gets another year from his pass reps group. Maybe they add another D tackle and they limit their turnovers because that really killed them. But let me pose this question to you guys. So we put that on the back burner and we look at the NFC landscape right now, which changes year to year. I know Philly's back to being viable, but they were a joke last year. Can the Cardinals, knowing where we're at with this franchise, can they emulate what Philadelphia has done to get to the Super Bowl this year? They are a run-first team. They're a team that DNA of that Eagles team is all over Arizona, directly or indirectly. Is that obtainable, or are you in a different spot because Philly is so unique because their quarterback is such a threat to be a power runner as well?
No, I don't think that like the quarterback is the true like separator for Philly. I think he does like a nice job. He had obviously his best performance in a long time yesterday, but like you're looking at, I think, the wrong reason for success if you're looking at Jalen Hurts. I mean, their trenches are some of the best in the league, what they do defensively and offensively up front. And then you give them a guy like Saquon Barkley and he takes what they do blocking to another level.
As much as we like hate on Nick Sirianni and, he's a Pop Warner coach, Howie Roseman does do a pretty damn good job
He's the best GM in the NFL.
I mean, their roster is unbelievable, and it has been for the better part of like a decade at this point.
I just think you need to continue to use premium picks in the trenches. Or really start to emphasize that. Continue to do that while you build that roster. I mean, Roseman's been at it for a decade, right? And, he's had different iterations of the Philadelphia Eagles, but they've always had a pretty solid core in place. And then if they hit on a draft, in a free agency, it takes them to, another level. Where I think the Cardinals are just kind of like scratching the surface as far as roster-wise, having a core in place and then really kind of continuing to work on the trenches. And I think once they do that, like the other pieces, the playmakers can be interchangeable, and they could get in that situation. They could find that consistent foundation and that success that follows with it.
I'll push back. The one notion I'll push back on is that Jalen Hurts always can be bailed out, and this is his own credit, with his brute force as a runner, whereas Kyler Murray does not have that option. Now, you make an argument Kyler Murray throws a better ball. I think a lot of people would. Jalen Hurts has been to 2 Super Bowls now, and he doesn't play in the NFC West, and I get that. But I just feel like, yes, I agree with you. The Cardinals, and I think this should be the theme of the offseason, forcing this team to become more physical on both sides, specifically defensively. You're forcing more turnovers, just like the Vikings did this year, and setting Sam Darnold up for success. I just feel like with Jalen Hurts, when that team gets in the red zone and they're like, the passing game's not clicking, it's almost just like Saquon and Jalen, they go back to back. Jalen had, 2 to 3 rushing touchdowns. Saquon had 3. They had 7 rushing touchdowns as a team. Yeah. I just think with Kyler Murray's stature, like, that's never going to be the Cardinals. And again, like, that's like 2 or 3 teams in the NFL. That's Baltimore, that's the Buffalo Bills, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles, that they can operate like that at quarterback. Mm. But I don't know. I feel like you have to find your own formula if you're going to put this kind of, recipe for roster building in place where you can maximize what Kyler Murray does well. And I think Kyler Murray is closer to Jared Goff in terms of the kind of offense you need to build than I think Jalen Hurts. I think Kyler Murray, conventional wisdom would suggest, short to intermediate passing game right now until you can prove that you can throw the ball downfield, and then a dominant run game, and you continue to build up that offensive line. Detroit, before they took off with Goff, Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker and Frank Ragnow, they had an elite offensive line put in place, and they drafted some elite skill players, and they just had a facilitator. That's kind of what you have to do with Kyler Murray now, in my opinion. I saw a lot of people saying you got to run Kyler like Jalen Hurts. That's ridiculous. It's never going to happen.
No, he'll die.
Jalen Hurts squats like 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, he's a big, strong kid, and but then what Jalen Hurts can do with his legs, he can't necessarily do what Kyler Murray can do throwing the football.
Correct.
And I think Kyler Murray needs to show it. This upcoming season is like the separation between like what he does better than a player like, say, the caliber of Jalen Hurts. He's never going to be Josh Allen. Josh Allen's never going to be Patrick Mahomes. Like, there's tiers to this, but like, I think just his ability to throw his arm talent is significantly better than Hurts. He just has to prove it. Like, what Hurts does do well, and it's a credit probably to his ability to run it, but he also showed in key situations, he extended plays and then got rid of the football.
Yeah.
And it was never in harm's way. He's taken incredibly great care of the football. He's valued the football, which down the stretch, unfortunately for Kyler Murray, throughout his career, he just didn't do that during a crucial stretch this season for the Cardinals. And if he gets back to doing that like he did earlier in the season, I think Cardinals, especially with an improved roster, will be in a really rock solid spot.
Cardinals can make the playoffs with Kyler Murray. Like, we've never disputed that. It's happened before, and you continue to build up the roster. But yeah, I don't know how, if you go through this offseason, you're not thinking about fortifying the line of scrimmage for this team, and giving Kyler Murray one last shot to kind of put it all together. But Jalen Hurts, Claymore Jones pointed out, like, Jalen Hurts is just built completely different than Kyler Murray. Like, not all mobile quarterbacks are the same here. And their ability just to bludgeon teams up front. Their quarterback is so powerful at the point of attack that they've developed this own tush-push mantra that not even the Buffalo Bills can remedy or replicate. It's going to be an interesting offseason with the Arizona Cardinals, and it's going to be interesting, Bo, for a lot of different reasons. But specifically, like, do you feel like at this point in time, as we sit here in late January, that the Arizona Cardinals are a couple of moves this offseason from, at least on paper, having a comparable roster to some of these teams in the Final Four and the Final Eight? Because here's what I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I don't think Buffalo's roster is that great. I don't think Washington's roster is that great. Now, they had elite quarterback play on both those teams, but I'm going down this roster and I'm like, man, if they hit on just a couple of guys, you could close that gap between 8 or 9 wins to 11 or 12 wins pretty quickly.
No, I mean, I was talking, and I mentioned this on Friday. Aaron Schatz of FTN Fantasy, and he's a guy that does, looks through all the numbers and analytics and stats and stuff. And the Cardinals were right there, like anywhere from 12 to 14, just the slightest above average in almost every category. Like they're a balanced team that is right there at the precipice of almost knocking at the door to kicking the door in top 10 in different areas. And if they do, they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to win games a little bit more handily than they did before. But no, you're right. Like it's still going to take, really savvy moves this offseason to improve it. But the talent floor on this roster has been improved drastically over the last 2 years. To go and it showed itself even through like the struggles where they were tight games.
Yeah.
Despite some plays where they're chasing points and they're not winning the turnover battle, or they're undisciplined and they're getting flagged up. Like they've got talent on their roster, and it's not they're not far off. No, I don't think they're far off. I mean, you can look at like the Chiefs and the Eagles and the 2 Super Bowl teams, and you're like, that still feels like really daunting. That seems like it's really far away. But as far as being one of the 7 playoff teams in the NFC, no, I don't think they're that far away. And I don't think like the step that they could potentially take next year's it's going to put them in even closer striking distance to potentially becoming one of these 2 teams that plays in the final game of the season.
We're not losing any key pieces this offseason. You're just not. Respectfully, they signed James Conner and Budda Baker already, and they're going to upgrade. And you think, Bo, you just pointed it out, like they were a possession away from beating every team in the second half. I mean, they were right there. 2-6 could have easily been, whatever it is, 6-2. You need those blue chippers, those top end players to help you finish games. Whereas this Cardinal team, 2022 would get blown out, 2023 would get blown out, right? They would compete, but with the maturation process of your 2 draft classes, you've raised the talent. Your coaching is highly thought of and is getting potentially plucked after an 8-9 season. It is the missing piece of this team getting back to the playoffs. The missing piece of winning a championship, you have to get better quarterback play from Kyler Murray, and we've evaluated that and broken that down until the cows come home. But you need a pass rusher, a defensive tackle, an off-ball linebacker, a guard that can come in and help you close out games against the NFL's best. Their playoff loss, their losses this year, they lost 9 games. Save for Carolina, every game they lost was to, I believe, a playoff team. Washington, Green Bay, Seattle. Seattle had 9 wins.
But they're hanging a banner for the best non-playoff team in the history of the NFL.
They are. You're losing to teams that on paper were projected to beat you. On paper, were projected to be better than you coming into last season. On paper, a lot of people feel like have better rosters, certainly better quarterbacks for a lot of teams. So I think that's what Gannon meant at the end of the year when he was like, we have to be better. We have to get better. And Kyler Murray just has to be a key cog in that. You saw it on full display yesterday. Should we jump into some super chats?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Vondo, $4.99. Who hates who more chat? The reverse flash with the flash or JV with Tip Ryman? My money is on the latter. I'm not sure I understand that first reference. I don't
either.
DC fan when it comes to the flash, but here's what I will say. I don't hate Tip Ryman, the player or the person. I hate that they used a top 100 pick on a 3rd blocking tight end. I feel like we've been pretty consistent with that take.
Johnny, you don't know DC like that, bro?
I do not.
Wow.
I know my Batman, the animated series lineage. I don't know a ton outside of that. I'm optimistic about.
I thought Johnny was like kind of just like a I'll eat all the slop type of guy.
Nerd. Yeah, huge nerd. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
I mean, Johnny was a massive nerd.
I'm pretty locked in on DC. I got the reference.
I'll say this as being the least I guess comic book nerdy of the crew. Like, I'll go to war saying the Nolan trilogy for Batman's like the greatest trilogy of all time.
It's in the discussion. Yeah, my Batman acumen is on point.
His Star Wars kicked in there too.
Return of the Jedi brings the ratio down.
All right.
But I would say the best of the best, there's 6 movies combined. 2 of the best 3 are Star Wars movies, but after that, the latter 2 Batman movies are better than Return of the Jedi. How about that? I'll give you that.
Okay. Thanks for giving me that.
Yeah.
Josh, $10. Do you think Monti would take a trade offer to draft night to see if his guy is there and not trade to either the Raiders or the Cowboys? They tend to be cheaper because those teams see their guy at 16. Think Monti could hold out?
I have PTSD from when they traded for Hollywood Brown on draft night. And Bo and I did months and months of draft prep for Steve Keim to trade away his first round pick for Hollywood Brown. That's a Keim move, Josh. I think that if they're going to trade for a guy, they're going to do it in March so that they can plan accordingly. That's just my opinion, Bo. I don't think that they're going to trade on the clock. And I think if you're the Raiders, you would want to get it done so you can get ready to maybe trade up for a quarterback or trade up for a player. Good teams do it in advance, and that's why I continue to bang the drum. Ossenfort signed Buddha and James during the year. I feel like that was intentional so he could focus on improving the rest of the team and not be so reactionary like Steve Keim. Just kind of doing Hollywood Brown, buddies with Kyler Murray. Let's just take him. Let's just trade for him. Get him on the plane, Michael. That was
Reezy
so
baby. $5. Thank you, Reezy baby. Whether K1 is the answer or not, these playoff games are won at the line of scrimmage. Skill players are almost interchangeable. Draft, sign, beef.
But you got to have skill players to get you to the playoffs. And this year, the Cardinals, save for their pass rush, their passing game was not good enough to be a playoff team this year. They were one of the best running teams in the NFL. They didn't score enough touchdowns. They threw 21 passing touchdowns, and 4 of them came in the finale against a dead Niner team. Like, they did, say what you want. You got to get to the dance first. I agree with you. I think the Cardinals, get a guard, get the edge rushers, get defensive tackles. The Cardinals were atrocious throwing the ball in the second half of the year. That's what blew their season. The defense played great against the Rams, right? The defense shut out Carolina in the second half. They played good at Seattle. The offense laid a big turd in the second half.
Mac Daddy 714 chiming into our nerd discussion. Return of the Jedi greater than Dark Knight Returns.
I mean, I would say the Dark
Knight Rises. Is that what we're talking about?
I think that's what he means. I think that's what he means. I don't hate that take. It's not a take that bothers me.
Yeah, I just can't get into like the old SFX or whatever.
You mean the stuff that was handmade and done?
Yeah, I know, but we've come a long way.
CGI. Christopher Nolan, who did the Dark Knight trilogy, shot practically. So
I know, but it looks way better. Way better.
It's the story.
It was pretty remarkable for the time.
It was. I can agree with that, but it's not for me living in my time.
But you're acting like it's like old Star Trek level.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy.
Return of the Jedi had a lot of problems behind the scenes, and George wanted to go a more kid route, and the people involved were like, you're going the same story. Second Death Star, George, come on. So it's easily the black sheep of the films. Let's keep it going. Say super chats. The Nolan trilogy's goated, though. I mean, to get Christopher Nolan to do a Batman trilogy, I mean, you might as well pack up shop, DC, after that. There's nothing you can do. Brian, $5, Bo. Draft lineman. My draft pick, don't want none unless you real thick and juicy. Oh, I'm so glad I read this super chat. I know the flavor is Trey Smith. Becton looks solid at right guard for the Eagles.
Yeah, Brian was asking about this on Twitter, and I agree. Like, Becton would be a nice little guard. I think he beat the allegations of being a bust, a first round bust that everybody thought he was with the Jets. We get the reports that he's puking in his first day of training camp for the Eagles, and man, he's come a long way, hasn't he? And it would look good, and especially if they keep Clayton Adams and you just fit him and sign him to a multi-year contract, then you've got one offensive line spot really to look for this offseason. I think that it would be an upgrade for the Cardinals, and he's young, controllable. That would be great.
Mekhi Becton, be a fan of that, 100%. LVL7, $4.99. And guess what? Mekhi Becton, where was he at? The Jets, and then was saved by the Eagles. Haason Reddick, the Jets, saved by the Cardinals. Like it or not, the Cardinals need to add a receiver on day 2. Jake Beck, Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, etc. I just feel like LVL7, like, do they need another wideout? Absolutely. Are you going to go another young wide receiver to go with Marv and Michael? I think they need a 28, 29-year-old to come in and help. Maybe they go that route, though. I just feel like that position group, can they find a veteran? Maybe it's Zay Jones. Maybe it's a draft pick. I don't know. What do you think they do?
I think Golden's going to go too high. I don't know if he's going to be there. I don't think you want to take a receiver in the second round. So if we're talking day 3, I don't think Golden's there. Bond has been projected around there from Texas. I don't see that as a top priority. Like we've been having this discussion, like you got it, especially in this talent-rich draft, especially trench play. I think you lean into that this year because you would benefit from it. And you just need a step from Marvin Harrison Jr. for this wide receiver core to really make the jump that you're looking for. Do they need a wide receiver 3? Do they, can Greg Dortch come back and play that position? I think we saw, especially at the end of the season, them find his role a little bit better, how it fits better in this offense. Does he come back as a restricted free agent, or do you look to upgrade at the spot? Sure, like those are some interesting names, but I don't think you can prioritize it over getting your defensive front 7 set and the rest of your offensive line set.
It's hard for me to pound the table for a third receiver right now because Michael Wilson and Marv need more targets. I think a lot of this would just be remedied if those guys got the ball thrown to them more. I think Elijah Higgy-Bear deserves more targets. I think this offense needs to be more efficient throwing the football to the players that they have.
People saying that he can't be Greg Dortch can't be your wide receiver 3. He's not. He'd be your 4th option in the passing game. I'm talking about, like, you got Trey McBride, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Michael Wilson.
That should be enough.
Yeah, and then you got the run game. Yeah.
Look at what Jayden. I know Kyler's not Jayden. Look what Jayden Daniels is operating with.
Yeah.
Scary Terry, and then
stud.
He's got flipping Austin Eckler.
Remember when Scary Terry from Ohio State was available and Steve Keim was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good." Andy Isabella.
His number 2 though is Zach Ertz with his walker.
Yes. Kudos to Zach Ertz, man. He blew my parlay yesterday, but he was unbelievable this year. He was really, really good year. I thought he was washed with the Cardinals. Now, frankly, he looked washed. But coming off his injury, coming back like that, looked fantastic. You know who didn't look fantastic, Bo, today? New Jaguars coach Liam Cohen, who was giving off the weirdest guy vibes at the Jags presser. Let's check out new Jags coach Liam Cohen, who stiffed his old team to jag off with Jacksonville. Here he is.
Duval.
That's scary. One more time, Damon. Let's do it one more time.
Duval.
What's with the eyebrows?
I don't know, man.
It's a weird looking dude.
It's an all-time cringy moment.
That's a weird looking guy. Listen, Gannon had a moment go viral, so we're not here to throw shade, but it's worked out with Jay-Z. That's creep vibes. I don't like that. At least with Gannon, it was wholesome with the shots. And he's just like your fun uncle. That guy, it's like you see that guy and you're like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's 1,000 times worse than shots explosives.
It's the worst. Like, Gannon was behind the scenes talking to guys one-on-one. And this was his introductory press conference.
One more time, Damon. Let's see it again.
Duval.
He looks like, I don't even know. He looks like an NBA player who's just like kind of the assistant bench coach, kind of lurching around, and he's doing his weird head thing like this. He doesn't look like a football coach. Maybe it'll work out.
He looks like the guy that's doing your taxes that's giving you a dad joke.
That's true. Yeah.
It's just
check over there with Eddie. He'll get you taken care of. Yeah. Bring your receipts. And he's doing this with his head. Yeah. Hello, fellow kids.
That was by far the worst moment of it. I mean, and then you had Schottenheimer and as you said, like just the unhinged Dallas Cowboys entire press conference. Like just cut the audio on Jerry's mic at this point. Just, Aaron Glenn saying, this is going to be our identity because we're the effing Jets or whatever. It's like, okay, cool, man. Get that energy when you're 4-13 again.
Here's what I'll say. It's not like I defended Jerry Jones, but like the Cowboys they haven't had any playoff success, but they're never like terrible, right? They've drafted decently. They've had this run since Romo and Dak where they're in the playoff mix every year. So I have been one of the people who have given Jerry Jones like the benefit of the doubt a lot. The McCarthy hire worked out. He is today, these quotes that I saw today, I think we're ready to just say, you're done, Jerry. you like want to hear this, he's sitting next to Brian Schottenheimer and looking him in the face and he's going, this is as big a risk as you can take. Brian has no head coaching experience. So instead of talking up his candidate, he's saying things like, if you really knew my score sheet, you would have seen that I've taken more risks in the last 5 years than the rest of my life put together. Like, what are you even saying? Your risk of signing Zeke last free agency period? He's on Twitter too much, I think. Jerry's on Twitter. He's on social media.
Jerry likes betas. That's what's with Jerry. Jerry doesn't like alpha male coaches. He likes betas that he feels like he can control. And he just got another one.
I just saw a report that the Saints, they talked to Mike McCarthy and they're like, we don't like this guy. Did you see that?
Done?
Huh?
Is Mike done?
I think he's gonna do like he did with Green Bay, take a year off, and then he'll resurface next year at this time. Angel saying Aaron Glenn fired in 2 years. Somebody said that Liam Cohen was giving math teacher trying to be cool with the kids vibes, which is pretty accurate too.
Substitute vibes.
Yeah.
Hey guys, get out last night's assignment. Dallas is in trouble because Washington has their act together. The Giants remain the biggest laughing stock, but Philadelphia and Washington are going to, continue to win games. And the Cowboys, to me, prime time to deal Micah Parsons, Dallas, if you had any kind of sense at all. Jalen, you're right. Nobody wants that Saints job. Kliff's not taking. They even said today, Kliff's like, I'm good. I don't want it.
Because it's like, okay, can I make every red cent from my Cardinals contract and just not have the pressure and go to a bad situation where there's no quarterback, they're in cap hell, there's no direction, we don't know about the new, what Mickey Loomis is going to do from here. It was a disaster under Dennis Allen. What's going to be different with me there? Like Kliff Kingsbury, at least like what he can learn from his mistakes is what a dysfunctional organization looks like. And if it's run by a bad GM, he knows what that looks like. And I think that, Mickey Loomis's days of being a good NFL GM are behind him.
Kellen Moore do anything for you, Damon, as the new head coach of the Saints?
Yeah, that's solid. I think that's definitely the direction you want to go. Middling offensive coordinator.
He's young. Just over there, he's like, just run it with Saquon. Ooh, give me a head coaching interview. Saquon, touchdown. This is like Saquon at the most historic year ever by a running back.
Yeah, does it come with the Eagles O-line and Saquon as well? Do they get to take
and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? Yeah, they're set. That's all those players are going to be with the Saints for sure.
The only thing that could have been worse for Liam Cohen is if he botched the saying.
How could you botch Duval? What would you say? Divine. Whoops. That's not what that means.
What do we all say around here, cool cats?
People are like, maybe we made a mistake. Duvet cover. Maybe we should have let this guy go back to Tampa. You guys need to drop a like on this video. We appreciate you all. We got a loaded week. Fran Duffy's going to join us for more Senior Bowl coverage. I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to Jalen Milroe as a draft prospect, Bo, who had some of the babyest hands seen since Kenny Pickett. Jalen Milroe, who a lot of people, I tweeted out a video this weekend. He looked good shirtless running around. Mm-hmm. And then his numbers have come out today. His hand size.
They bust out the tape measure. He couldn't hide from it.
Somebody took a shot by shot Jalen Hurts versus Jalen Milroe's hands are 1 inch smaller. Everything else is the same, but the hand size with Jalen Milroe. And turns out hand size kind of important.
Well, like in the statistical production, in the championships.
Yeah, for sure.
They're basically the same guy.
They're both 6'1". They're both 220. They both have the same arm size, but one of them has an inch smaller hands. I mean, I will say, like, Jalen Milroe got stuck in Bama when they lost their legacy coach, and I was ready to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, he was good against Georgia last year. He played a really good game, but yeah, he is. I think if you're drafting him to be Jalen Hurts, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. But you mentioned 20 rushing touchdowns. Like, can he become like a gadget guy?
Yeah. I think. And listen, he's going to do everything that you ask. He's going to go to the combine.
So you can take off your board completely is Dylan Gabriel.
You're not a fan?
5'10" officially, 9-inch hands. I'd be concerned if he was a pitcher with those size hands. He could get his hands around a baseball.
Yeah. No Cam Scatterbo this week at the Senior Bowl. Just broke from Dane Brugler.
Cam?
See him at the combine. We got enough Cam Scatterbo content here at PHNX Sports. We've had him in studio with our guys from ASU. Done a phenomenal job. So, I mean, what's left to prove for our guy Cam Scatterbo? Just left it all on the field.
I would have loved to have seen how he competed against guys in Mobile.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I almost feel like it's more important that he tests well. I don't know if I need to see him. I mean, I saw him run through Texas defensive linemen. I think for him, it's like preparing for his 40 time, his short shuttle, that kind of thing, where that's where everybody's questions are. Like, nobody questions him as a football player. They question how is he going to test. So maybe
I'm with you there.
ready for that.
Yeah.
I think it's more for me, just like even if he tests poorly, but he dominates the Senior Bowl, I'd feel comfortable picking him.
Yeah, for sure.
With Fran outline, like 30 pounds, 40 pounds lighter than some of these big bruising backs. But like, I think Cam Scatterbo has a great self-awareness to where they're like, if you want to play at the next level, you have to be quicker. So he lost the weight while keeping his strength from his previous season to this season. Like, that was one of the big talking points. So like, I think he's got what he needs to do to give himself the best shot here in the pre-draft. So this is probably a calculated move.
Yeah. It's calculated that you drop a like on this video. We've got 716 people watching live. Subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. We are approaching 40,000 subscribers. We want to hit it before the NFL draft, and we need all of you to get us there. And we've got a banner week. Again, our guy Fran Duffy live at the Senior Bowl, going to be breaking down likely future Arizona Cardinals, because the Cardinals can't help themselves with both the Shrine and the Senior Bowl bow, as well as, of course, premier coverage this week as we gear up Cardinals Pro Bowl. We got Buda Bakers participating, James Conner, and then, of course, everything as it relates to where this team is headed this offseason. And we get into February. It's game on. It's transactions that can happen, trades, everything under the sun with this team. And, we're fired up about it. Plus our Super Bowl coverage next week from NOLA.
Can't wait for it. Subscribe to PHNX Sports, as Johnny said, and subscribe to us wherever you find your podcast. Leave a review. Leave a rating. Get that Fran Duffy prospect breakdown, NFL draft guide at gophnx.com/draft guide. You got to be a diehard, though, so go PHNX. You can get that done there as well. For Damon, Dawg, for Johnny Venerable, I'm Bo Brack. Barring any breaking news, we'll talk to you tomorrow on PHNX Cards.
We all silly like the mayor.